Our next question will start with Dwayne Thompson, and it is, how should we regulate welfare in a way that helps people get back on their feet instead of creating a lifestyle of welfare dependence?
That's a very good question, very valid question. Having done 20 years of experience in benevolence, first of all, you got to be able to say no, which I'm able to do that. What I'm going to find out is it's just not as easy as it sounds. However, it is certainly possible. One thing is you can't continue just to give ongoing without an end to government help. That's the first thing you do. But another thing you do, I've come to find out as I've talked to those that's working for DHS, is there was a time in our country that when someone would come in and apply for food stamps, whatever it is, they would first send out people to go basically check their story out. You know, we don't do that anymore. I haven't done it for years. You know, when people now come into a welfare office and sign up and get irate at our workers, that right there for me, you're gone for 30 days. You come back in 30 days. No one comes in and treats our workers like that when we're trying to help you. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if we can't get back out, which obviously that means funding. There's also a ratio of DHS workers to caseload that we're so far over that, so we've got our caseload so high because of lack of funding. So that the problem is, to me, we're shooting ourselves in the foot because we're not checking out the stories because we won't fund it. So now we're funding so much more. Now, I have not done the research on this, but I would venture to guess this. Maybe someone will do it. If we'll check out the cost of what it would do to fund it properly so we can check out the stories, we probably wouldn't be paying out as much money. But the bottom line is yes, you've got to cut the funding off. You can't just have a free-for-all and everyone just coming in just because they need help. It's okay to help widows and orphans. But those that can work have to work. Let me tell you those scripture that people don't ever quote. Scripture says that it literally means the lazy person's cravings will lead to his death because his hands refuse to work.
Thank you. Next is Dakota Wood.
I'd be in favor of public assistance for 6 months at poverty rates at the lowest level possible. I've been in places in the world where people have been war-torn countries or have been displaced because of natural catastrophes. The successful aid agencies that go in provide the bare minimum assistance required to sustain life and no more. Because if you give somebody more than that, the living's too good, they don't want to go home. Same situation right here. So I would say about a 6-month stipend of some type at the subsistence level in our country. Beyond that, you go to work for the government, you go to work for the public. I think public service is a noble cause. We've got ditches that need to be dug, we've got grass along roadsides that need to be picked up and cleaned and cut. And so something similar to the WPA that was mentioned earlier, where if an individual is taking a check from the government, he or she owes something back to the government and the public who will put in their tax dollars to make that possible. In addition to that, is I would not be increasing benefits as people add children. My wife and I, we had one child. I was making what I was making. We added numbers 2 and 3. The government or my company or the Marine Corps didn't increase my wages just because I was having more kids. So it disincentivizes people to take control of their own lives. It disincentivizes people to put equity back into the system that they're receiving the benefit from. So I'm about personal responsibility and accountability. It's certainly been my experience. The more you hold people accountable and you get them involved in contributing something back, it increases a sense of citizenship and reestablishes the relationship between the person receiving the benefit and the society that's providing it. That would be my approach.
Dustin Rowe. How should we regulate welfare in a way that helps people get back on their feet instead of creating a lifestyle of welfare dependence?
You know, welfare encompasses many different programs today in our government. Welfare has grown exponentially over the decades. As we look at the welfare programs, as we look at the way that they've grown, the Social Security program has been added into lots of different welfare types of programs. And so, first off, we have to realize that America has changed. America is not the same country, I believe, and I wasn't alive, but many of you probably heard John F. Kennedy's famous quote in 1961. He said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, Ask what you can do for your country. 60 years ago, that was the quote. I really do believe we're living in a generation of Americans today that are asking us not what I can do for the government, as what the government can do for me. That's the problem in America. We have had a generation of people that believe that, and we've rewarded that behavior from Washington, D.C. We have a president that rewards that behavior, and a Congress many times that has rewarded that behavior, that it is the government's role to take care of yourself. And so this question begs the question, what is the role of government in our lives? What is the role? I will tell you folks, I am not a libertarian. I believe there is a role for government, but I believe it's a proper role. It is a role that is limited, and it's a role that is healthy. I do not believe we need to look to the federal government for the answers to all of our problems and to take care of us from cradle to grave. That is not the America that our founding fathers created. I believe that we need to encourage people to get back to work. And at the end of the day, the welfare program should be for those who cannot work, not for those that can. And if you go to Walmart tomorrow afternoon from noon to 5 o'clock, you'll see a many of able-bodied people roaming the aisle that should be at work. And that's not what welfare is for. Let's have strong programs. Let's strengthen those programs. But let's use them for the most vulnerable in our society that cannot make it otherwise. And that's the way they were created to begin with. Thank you.
In 1995, I wrote the nation's most comprehensive state welfare reform bill, House Bill 1887, I believe it was. We enacted welfare reform before the feds did. Bill Clinton, a year later, as you know, was tied over barrel after we vetoed it twice and had to do that nationally. But what our bill did, or what my bill did, what House Bill 1887 did, was it redirected money away from cash assistance. Actually, at that time, it froze cash assistance. My goal was to end cash assistance, but it froze cash assistance, has not been increased since that day, and it redirected funds to education, child care, and health care. If you give someone education, they'll get a better job. If you give them child care, they'll be able to get the education while they're studying. If you give them health care, they'll be able to take care of the kids so they're not worried about it. Those three things, we actually increased funding for those. At the 10-year anniversary of that bill's enactment, the state of Oklahoma had saved over $500 million, and that was in 2005, so we've had 7 years since then. So I would tell you that's the way to do it. You get money away from giving it to them in pockets, and you give it to them in other ways, or don't give them money, but you basically reward them by giving them a hand up, not a handout, and you end welfare as we know it. One other thing I would add to that, the food stamp program is a federal program. States have nothing to do with that. It's been totally abused. As we know, we're under the food stamp president today. That's increased to 300%. When Frank Lucas tried to cut it back 30%, he got pushback from this administration. And we cannot do that, obviously. We need to cut that back to where it was. Originally, food stamps was a 90-day program, as Mr. Wood was saying earlier. That's what it needs to be again. You give people subsidies instead of a gold card. It takes away the stigma. And by doing those things, I think we could actually curtail our benefits, get rid of the cell phones, do those sorts of things. And we actually end up with a welfare program that's small and it's manageable. Thank you.